Hi Aruna,
Yeah.
welcome to Writersmelon, or rather, should I say, welcome to the Weird Women's Club. Uh, I'm so happy to see you, having read your book, like the first book, the very, very first book. I'm so happy to meet you in
Thank
person.
you so much.
So tell us about your journey so far.
Thank you so
From
much, Priyanka, for inviting me.
I'm facing some kind of a lag in this, but yeah, hope things work out. The technology doesn't really overpower us. So yes, tell us about your journey from Mango Cheeks Metal Teeth to this one, Weird Women's Club. How has been your writing shaping up in almost over a decade now that you have been writing and
Yeah,
getting publishing?
well, I've been writing fiction for about a decade, well, novels as such. Before that, I was doing other kind of writing. And Mango Cheeks Metal Teeth was my first novel. It was my debut novel, and it is basically a coming of age story and social satire, which was set in 1980s Kerala. And the backdrop was uh, an ancestral home during the summer holidays and all the cousins meeting up, and the story was set against this. And I think for a debut novel, this was something which had been in my mind for a long time, because the summer vacations for us, I'm sure for you
Yes,
as well, growing up in a certain time when we all used to go back to our grandparents' home and meet all the cousins and all that. That was we have such fond memories of those times.
absolutely.
So I think it was inevitable that when I wrote my first novel, that would be the backdrop, I think. Mango Cheeks Metal Teeth was very much, since it was my first novel, it was a leap of faith as such. And it was, I think, very much, I was discovering myself as a novelist. I was not sure what tone it's going to take and so on. But I found that it was taking a very humorous tone, the novel. And over the years, I've learned that that is my, kind of natural inclination to write humor. And it's something that I've embraced over my three novels that I've written. Weird Women's Club is the third novel. My second novel is called The Monsters Still Lurk, and it's a story
Yes.
about family and aging, which is set over 25 years. It starts in the early 90s, just when was decolonized. And this is the path where India changes somewhat from simple time to post-liberalization economy, where the economy is booming, and mobiles were coming in and internet was coming in, and society changed so much. So the backdrop is different. Again, that sort of milieu that I grew up in the from the 90s to present day. And it was a sort of uh, a time that was so interesting to me, because I think India changed so much, the society changed so much. And so to set my novel in that space, I think was very interesting to me. And since it was also a novel about aging, I think it was very interesting, because for somebody who has actually grown up, or in pre-liberalization India, and is growing old in post-liberalization India, the challenges are so unique. So
Correct.
so that was The Monster Still Lurk. And it did have some darker themes about aging and illness and death and all of that. But again, for me, I found that everything was being written in a humorous tone. So I think, again, as I said, that's my natural
Yes.
inclination.
Yes. That's
And finally,
exactly
with
what,
the
yes, that's exactly what I got in Weird Women's Club, as in all
yeah,
first 50, 60 pages that I have read, is that
yeah,
how you deal with like really sad, tragic stories in a very real, humorous way. I mean, you talk about a girl who is widowed, and the way you describe her grief and her situation, I mean, it just gave me goosebumps for a time that, how you can really convert into such language and such a narrative. Yes, please tell more about Weird Women's Club
yeah.
now.
So yeah, the Weird Women's Club is actually a very modern novel. It's contemporary women. It's a big city novel, I would say. All these women are these urban, sophisticated, educated, progressive women.
Yes.
So it's actually quite different from Mango Cheeks Metal Teeth in terms of how I write it as well, because the language and all of that is, the way they speak is very different from the young 11-year-old girl in Mango Cheeks Metal
True.
Teeth, for that, right? So the Weird Women's Club is basically, at its heart, is a story of friendship between these three women who have all gone through some loss or some grief in their life. So there's Hema, who's been widowed at the age of 38 unexpectedly,
Hmm.
and she's completely wallowing in misery, and she's, completely overwhelmed by misery. Then there's
Absolutely.
Avanti, who's recently divorced and who's furious with her ex and with the world at large. And there's Jeru, who is struggling with infertility, and she,
IVF.
she's kind of swinging between hope and despair.
Yes.
And through these three women, I just wanted to explore. One was female friendships,
Hmm.
uh, and the fun aspect of female friendships. We talk a lot about female friendships and the nurturing and the caring and all of that, but what we don't often talk about is, how much fun female friendships can be.
Yes.
All the
Yes.
bantering and the risque talk and all of that. And for me, that those friendships are the best friendships, because those friends don't allow you to wallow in misery. They lift you up just by joking around.
Yes.
So I wanted to capture that. I also wanted to capture, what women go through when they don't fall into that,
Fit into the
socially
definition.
sanctioned,
Yes.
yeah, so socially sanctioned mold of, being happily married with children. What is the gaze of society on them, and what women go through? I wanted to, explore all of that, and that's what I do through the Weird Women's Club. But at its heart, it's also a story about lifting yourself up
Hmm.
after, reclaiming your life after grief and loss. And it's about second chances and finding friendship and laughter and love, after grief and loss.
Yes. I mean, it's really nice because sometimes we know about these themes that are prevalent in the society. Like there would be so many unexpected widowed women, women struggling with fertility and things like that. But I really love the way that you have kind of and interwoven these stories together and bring them together, because it's often said that you feel more connected with grief as compared to happiness. I mean, if you are happy, then probably you will connect with a lot of people, but at a superficial level. But when you are in grief, you probably
Yes.
connect even deeper, if at all you decide to share it and share it
That's
with somebody,
That's very
right?
true. And there's actually one conversation in the book where the three of them say that we are so different from each other. And yet, what brings us together is the fact that, we've all experienced these losses in our lives. And, we probably wouldn't have been friends if, we had not experienced this. And I think often women who don't really fit into that mold, they do feel awkward with, around, people who don't understand their grief. And
Yes.
so it's almost kind of natural for them to seek out or to be drawn to people who are like them, who understand what they're going through. So I think in a very light-hearted manner, I kind of explore all these themes.
Yes. So tell us about your writing craft, so to say. I mean, how do you weave a fiction like this? Because I have been reading ever since my life, and I always try to write something, but it is always so challenging to put together a good narrative and a good fiction. And when I was reading through some of your chapters, I just found so much pace in it, like so much of things happening, and it barely got boring, because initially when I read about these three women, I was like, what is it going to be? It could be like three people just whining in, and some gyan on feminism, and that was my
Right.
expectation, because that's so much that you see around. But
Right.
tell us, what is this ingredient of writing a good fiction, and how do you pace it up? What was your process like? I'm very curious to know that. And how much
Um,
preparation does it take? I mean, do you write it like in a flow? And I mean,
no,
how does it
never in
work?
a flow. No, it's never in a flow. And effortless writing always has a lot of effort behind it,
Yes, yes,
So what you're seeing is, after several drafts, lot of editing, lot of polishing, many versions, all of that, And I think that's true of any writing, that if you read something which is effortless, you can be sure that there's
Yeah.
a lot of effort which has gone in. I would say, yeah, I there's a lot of plotting which happens. Initially, it's a loose plot, and you decide that these are going to be your characters and so on. For this novel, actually, I wrote the three characters, stories separately to
Hmm.
start with.
Yeah, this
You
this
know,
is what I wanted to
yeah,
know actually. Yeah.
yeah, I actually wrote it separately to start with, and then when I started putting it together, because actually they're different women going through different things. So although the book actually kind of alternates between the three women, when I was writing it, I actually had to write each woman's story first, one by one chronologically, so that
Mm.
there was a flow.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I did. In terms of pacing and all of that, part of it comes naturally, but
Experience.
also a lot of it comes with polishing and being ruthless while you're editing. And you can't be in love with your writing. You must yeah, you must edit uh, ruthlessly. And I think I've been an editor. Like, before I was a writer, I was an editor. So I tend to
Okay.
be very self-critical, and I'm quite happy to cut out things and all of that. And my natural inclination is to write in, I think, in a pacey kind of manner.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, so in that sense, The Monsters Still Lurk, my second novel, was a little more meandering in that sense, because I
Yeah.
felt that pace was good for that book. So yeah, I think each novel kind of dictates its own pace.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if this novel was not written in that pace, it could have become like really morbid and sorrowful, and
Yeah.
and you would get burdened by all the grief and sorrow that's hovering these women, and that's something that really stood out, because often as a reader, you come across so many books, and especially now in the Kindle age where you can just download a sample and read few pages and decide to ditch it. There are very few samples which you actually go back and purchase and read fully, and yours is obviously one of those books. And I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you. That is
No,
what has happened, I mean, honestly. So
thank you so much.
so going back to your writing process again, so you wrote the three stories separately, and then you tried to intertwine them,
Yeah.
basis some basis the degree of how they are accepting their grief, or how they are coming to a closure, or uh,
Exactly. So at least if you notice, if you notice, half the story is actually the three ladies' stories separately, and then they actually meet, and
yeah.
the friendship actually begins from there. So at least the first half, the stories are separate, and
Mm,
it's only later on that I had, the story progressed, and I had three of them. And actually, each person's story, after half the book, each person's story actually takes the narrative forward.
okay.
So
Okay.
things are happening, and years are passing and months are passing, as the book goes along. So yeah, that's how I worked on this novel.
And on editing, since you said that you are ruthless with it, so typically, how many versions did you write? As in, how many drafts, how many rewriting, how many years of work? Because there are novels, or there are authors who write books every 6 months, every 1 month, but yours is typically more paced out, right? I mean, I have seen three books in last like ten years, and so how do you pay, and how long do you like plan and write? Does it take a lot of time? I mean, is it okay to take so much time to write? How does it?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, I think it's very easy to get pressurized, and most of the pressure is external pressure, like
Yeah.
that other people are writing fast, and so for you. But I don't think that makes for very good fiction. Like, if you're
Mm,
writing something just because you feel you should complete it within a certain time, I think it just makes for half-baked kind of ideas and plots and
mm,
so on. So I spend a lot of time between books. I mean, even right now, I'm not actually writing anything, but I'm thinking about things.
mm,
So I spend a lot of time in plotting, character development, all of that. And even once I start writing, there have been times when I've stopped and gone back and
mm.
rewritten things, or rewritten from a different point of view, or so on. In fact, The Weird Women's Club is one of the books I've written relatively fast, because
Okay.
two-thirds of the book I wrote in 5 months, during just after the lockdown.
Hmm.
because I think we were at home a lot and there was
Yes.
a lot of time. I think that was part of it, and also the narrative had reached a certain critical mass. So then it was just a question of writing and
And finishing it.
getting
Mm.
finishing it. But before that, before I read, the initial one third actually took a lot of time. So
Mm.
totally it took about a year and a half to write.
Okay.
So I think uh, that's how you get depth in the book, layers in the book, nuances in the book, is by taking your time over it, by thinking things through rather than just writing. I,
True.
for me personally, I cannot write like that because I feel it will be a very shallow story where and a very predictable story where people will
Mm.
know what's going to happen. So
Mm.
if I can write in couple of months, then I feel it'll be a very predictable story. It won't make for a good novel. But there are other novelists who can do that, and full
Mm.
credit to them.
Yeah. True.
But it's not the way I work. And yeah, I mean, The Monster Still Lurk took me 3 years to write.
Hmm.
Mango Cheeks Metal Teeth took me about a year and a half to write. And a lot of plotting and planning and all of that happens before that.
Mm.
So yeah, I think I'm a slow writer in that sense. But
You're like the Amir Khan of writing.
oh wow, that's a great, very flattering description. And so thanks for that. Yeah, but I hope, yeah, I think for me to be happy with the end product, I need
Mm.
to spend time on it.
So how do you measure success of a book? Like, um, I mean, I'm sure there must be some sales figures that would come from publishers, or you would hear the mainstream media giving attention to books, and which they normally give to certain publishers only and not all of them. So how do you measure success of your book? And often a lot of books don't even reach a lot of readers. There are just so many books that are coming on a daily basis
Absolutely.
from various different kind of publishers, self-published, Kindle, etc. According to you as an author, when do you feel satisfied the most with the work that you have done or put out?
Yeah, I think things like media coverage, etc., things that we cannot control,
Yeah,
and
true.
it's part. It. I don't know if it is a measure of success or the quality of your book or anything. It
Mm.
depends on a lot of things.
Yeah, your initiative,
Similarly,
PR, and
yeah, and similarly,
investments.
sales also, there are good books which don't sell. There are
Mm.
mediocre books which sell well.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, sales is every author wants their book to sell. So of course, if your books are selling, that's a great thing. But I think for me, a measure of success is when a reader comes back to me and says that they really enjoyed the book, that that they really related to the characters,
Yeah.
or if somebody says, when are you writing a sequel from this character's point of view,
Mm.
because then I know that they are really invested in the
Invested
story,
in
and
it.
yeah, and invested in the characters. And for the kind of books I write, which are really slice of life kind
Slice
of
of life.
story,
Yes.
yeah, the characters are very important. And when somebody says, oh, I could relate to it, that means I've captured life authentically. So
Mm.
for me, that I think that is the measure of success for me.
True. And what are your inspiration when it comes to reading? I mean, what kind of, because I think most of the writing reflects your bookshelf. I mean, what you are into, what kind of books you are into, is something that I would really love to know. What kind of books find a place in your bookshelf, and what kind of books do you experiment with and draw inspiration from?
Well, I've always been drawn to humor. I think even as a
Okay,
child, it's always been, Just William and all of those kind of books. Then later on, it was Woodhouse and,
okay.
even things like James Herriot and Gerald Durrell, which was written with so much humor. Those were
Mm,
the kind of books I was always drawn to. Later on, it was, I wouldn't say a particular author, but certain books,
mm.
like, say, Bridget Jones' Diary,
Bridget
which
Jones,
was
yeah.
so much, yeah, that was so much fun. Or even something like The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime,
Yes,
a
I love
serious
that
book.
book.
A
Yes,
serious book, but written with, with a deft touch and with a little bit of
yes.
lightness. So those books, I would say, are the books which have kind of influenced me. The first novel I remember, it's not a novel actually, it's a biography called Angela's Ashes,
Hmm.
which is a story of a family growing up in great poverty, post-war poverty, an Irish family. And but as you said, it could have been a very morbid story, but because
Hmm.
of the humor and the story, humor and the
Yeah.
deftness with which the writer wrote it, Frank McCourt was the writer. It was such a lovely read. It was such a touching, poignant, and also a read which made you laugh. So
Yes.
that is the first book I remember reading and thinking, yes, you can write serious novels, and you can still, it can still be an entertaining read. It can still make you laugh, still bring, it can make you feel a lot of emotions. So I like books like that.
What's the name you said? It's a biography.
It's called Angela's Ashes by
Angela's
Frank.
Ashes.
Yeah, by
Okay.
Frank McCourt. It's an old
Okay.
old book. I think I read it in college or something. I loved books. I've loved English August. If you
English August.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, because of the humor again, I thought also it was a very intelligent book. So humor is something which always, I've always been drawn to it. If I see humor or wit on on the back cover or on the blurb,
You're picking it
I'm
up.
likely to pick it up. Yeah, I'm likely to pick it up. But humor is also very difficult to do. So
Yes.
not everybody does it well. So sometimes, so to
Yes.
find a
Can
person who does it well is really, yeah, it's always a great find.
and you always knew that this would be your unique voice, or this is the kind of books that you want to write. I mean, when you wrote your first book, you knew that this would be my voice, or this is my voice. I have found it, and I'm going to break down morbid, difficult themes into simple, relatable, humorous narratives. Did you always know it, or it took you
I don't
time?
think I knew it when I started writing Mango Cheeks, Metal Teeth. I did not know that. In fact, in my mind, it was a serious story because it was a
Okay.
social. It
Okay.
was about that, that moment in a child's life where she discovers the differences, the social differences between householder and domestic help. She
Mm,
sees it for the first time and understands that difference. That was at the heart of the
heart of
story.
it.
But
Mm,
when I started writing, I found, and because it was against the backdrop of the summer vacation, I found all these, kind of quirky, eccentric
mm,
characters, all making an appearance in my writing. And at some point, I did stop and think, review what I was writing to see, is this the right tone for a serious
mm.
theme? But I felt it was working. I just embraced it, and the moment I embraced it, I think
It
it just
grew.
flowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was not a conscious decision at that point, but now I think I realize that that is my voice.
Mm,
So I don't stop and think, what it just comes naturally to me, and
yeah.
I just go with it.
And you're always attracted to read books which are like these, right? Because once you
Yeah,
read that kind of
yes,
narrative, it fits into your head, and then you're able to weave more.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm drawn to humor always.
Yes.
And also, I like stories about ordinary people and ordinary lives. I'm not necessarily the person who likes you know the twist in the tail ending or something very extraordinary. I love books just about normal people. uh, I enjoy those, and I think they're very hard to write and make them
Yes.
interesting.
Yes, that's true. And to pace it in that certain way.
Absolutely.
It was amazing talking to you, Aruna. Maybe one last question, your 2 cents on publishing. How do you see this going? And how has been your journey trying to find a different publisher after obviously your first publishing, how the giant Westland had to shut down and then again recreate itself? How has been your journey, and how do you see it in the future?
Well, I would say I've been very fortunate that all my three novels have been published by the largest publishing houses,
That's true.
very reputed ones. The first one was Westland, the second was Rupa, and the current book, The Weird Women's Club, is Speaking
Speaking
Tiger.
Tiger.
And I feel very fortunate because my novels are not, they are not either, the
Commercial.
award-winning. Yeah, no, they are not the commercial novels with, plots and fast-paced plots and so
I
on,
don't think you
like
should say that.
crime. No,
I think
no,
you
but
should remove the
I
fast paced from it. It is definitely very
okay,
fast
well,
paced.
yeah, okay, it's fast-paced, but it's not
From a
like
narrative point of view, yeah.
it's not like a twist in the tail. It's not like
Yeah, yeah.
crime.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not
true.
like romance, things which sell, which are this, or
Correct.
nor is it necessarily literary fiction, which is very
Correct.
lyrical. It's
Correct.
neither of those. It fits somewhere in the middle. And the stories also have been kind of different. They are not your typical stories. They're difficult to label as such. But I've been lucky to always find a publisher who has had faith in
Put
the
the
book,
faith.
yeah,
Yeah.
and has supported me a lot. As for the larger publishing industry, I think it's a very exciting time for Indian publishing, because if you look at, when we were growing up in the 90s and so on, Indian writing in English was just limited to a few
Limited.
authors, yeah,
True.
and mostly literary fiction.
Very
But
true.
today you have all kinds of genres, whether it's crime or mythological
That's true.
fiction or
Yeah.
humor,
It's
romance, and
exploded like anything
it's
basically in the last.
exploded. So there's, publishers are very willing to look at all kinds of stories. So there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also, obviously, there's a lot of competition. There's
Competition.
a lot of, yeah, there are a lot of books kind of competing with each other.
True.
Uh, yeah, but I think it's an exciting time, and I feel fortunate that I'm writing my books in this kind of time where publishers are kind of open to publishing all kinds of books.
Great. I wish you all the best, Aruna, and I'm looking forward to finishing your book.
Thank you
And
so much, Priyanka, and thank you for inviting me. It's
yes,
been a great pleasure talking to you.
thank you. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thank you. You too.